Okay, it says we're live. I hope so. You guys tell me if I'm blurry or in. Everything looks good to me, but my eyes aren't that good to start with. And tell me too if the audio is okay. You can just say something. Hey, I can hear you. Nice to meet you, Heather. This is Real Guitar Live. I'm Tomas Michaud. For those of you who are new, I'm going to answer all your questions about learning and playing guitar, and at least the best of my ability. And I sure wish I had somebody like this to answer my questions when I was first coming up. I came up with a lot of strange ideas that were disproved later. I'm hoping I can save a lot of people that kind of frustration. Now, just a couple of ground rules. I'm going to be taking questions. I got some that were pre-submitted, and I'm going to be looking for questions in the chat. Please give me capital letters question before you write your question. It's just me, and I'm looking over the chat and trying to pay attention to the camera and the guitar. And if I see question, I'm much more likely to be able to get it and answer it than if I have to sort through all the lines. So at the end, I'll try and see if I missed anything. Also, at the end of this, I'm going to do a drawing. This is for my members of my Real Guitar Success membership site. Each month we have a practice plan. There's 20 practice sessions. They're kind of like lessons and things with practice play-along tracks. And as the students go through these practice sessions, they check them off. And at the end of the month, if they've checked off all 20, they're entered into a drawing. And we give away a $50 Amazon gift card just for fun, just to kind of make it exciting. But the idea of the practice plan is to introduce students to a lot of different new techniques, and they can decide if they want to spend more time on it later, save it for their favorites, or just say that was good enough and move on. So we've got a hat full of people who have completed that, and I look forward to giving away the Amazon gift card at the end. So let's get started. I'll go ahead and start answering questions, and go ahead and throw questions into the chat, and I'll be looking over there and kind of going back and forth. Let's see. Let's start off with the first question that was pre-submitted. This is by Shulami, and she's talking about harmonizing notes. And her question is, I know that the first and sixth notes harmonize together. Besides that, what other combinations are they? And let me just give a little background. Harmonized notes are something like this. Oops. There. That was the first lick of Cat Stevens' Peace Train. What I'm doing is playing two notes together. And technique-wise, I'm using a pick and my finger. You can use two fingers. Harmonized notes can be used in lots of different ways. I use them as kind of licks when I'm playing acoustic guitar, but I also use them when I'm improvising. So I might play something like this. That was not very good improvisation. Those are what we call thirds. And this one, some people call sixths. That sounds better right off the bat. But thirds are popular. There. There. A little nervous. We got this. There we go. That sounds more harmonious. Harmonized, harmonious. By the way, I never imagined I would look forward to having a chat session with my customers, but this is kind of the highlight of my week. This and my staff meetings on Zoom, and I never imagined that. But otherwise, I'm kind of in the house a lot, and it's just nice to connect with some other people, even though it is only verbally. Let's see. When you're harmonizing notes, the idea is to pick two notes that sound good together. There. That sound more harmonized, like a melody. Now, just one thing I want to straighten out, because I've had some people ask questions about this. So Shelomit is talking about six notes. She's saying that the interval from here to this note is a interval of a sixth. Intervals start with a second, a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and each of those have a variation. So, for instance, I'll say a third. A third has a minor third and a major third. What we're referring to is the distance, and we can measure that with half steps. On the guitar, that means 1 fret. So a distance between this note and 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3. So there's the note, but I'm going to play it here so I can play it together. Would be a minor third. So this note to this note is a minor third. I'm only measuring the distance. It really doesn't say anything about a scale or a key or anything I'm in. And when you say a sixth, it depends on how you're looking at it. If you say a note is, in the case of a sixth, let's say a sixth is 8 half steps up. If you go 8 half steps up from here, well, let's go from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That note there. I'm going to play it down here so I can play them together. So that's a sixth. But it's actually the same as a third because it depends on how you look at it. If I went down an octave from this note, we are. There we are. Now it looks like a third. 1, 2, a major third. It's a major third is 4 half steps. So depending on how you think of it, you can change the octave of a note and call it a sixth or a third. The point being that it's not as clear if you say I'm playing in sixths. You could just easily say I'm playing in thirds, and it comes out the same. You can just move the notes 1 octave or not, or back and forth and call it a third or a sixth. Now, thirds and sixths are the 2 most common harmonized notes. But I'm also use octaves a lot. This is an octave. So you could say harmonized if you're playing exactly 1 octave, whether that's a harmony or not. It's a very common thing I like to use when I'm playing solos. I was first exposed to this by a famous jazz player. I'll think of his name in a minute. But very common for this kind of playing. Also, sometimes if I want something exotic, I'll play in fifths or fourths. Again, depending on how you look at it, it could be called a fifth or a fourth. So listen to this. It sounds dissonant, doesn't it? But in the right place, it sounds good. That would be used as like if I was making soup, a little bit of spice to add some spice, but you don't want to overdo it because it starts sounding, it would be too dissonant. It would sound harsh, like putting too much chili pepper in soup. It would kill the flavors of everything else. Okay, so I would recommend sticking, if you're just starting out, I'd stick to thirds and sixths pretty much, and octaves. Because you got to get used to them and using them before you start adding more exotic intervals. Also recommend that you study intervals a little bit and what they mean, because not only will they help you with this kind of thing, harmonizing notes, but they'll help you in general understanding chords and being able to figure out chords on your own without having to always know the exact form of the chord, the fingering form. You can figure it out that way. Okay, so enough theory. Let me go on to the next question here. Let me see if we got any questions. Mark says he just got back from a 2-mile walk. Good for you. Only 3 minutes late. You did good. Heather says she's an old dog learning new tricks. Well, I think most of us are old dogs learning new tricks. I'm learning something new every day, especially with this internet stuff. So, Shulamit, you're asking, when do you use these harmonic chords? I'm not clear on what you're asking. I was showing intervals. I don't know if you use the word chords in place of intervals or if you mean something different. Maybe you could clarify that a little bit, and I'll go on to answer the next question here. Jaroslav, I hope I said that right. I am now in beginner journey, 216, practicing gentle breeze. He's talking about within the membership site. He's at level 2 of the beginner's journey. He says, when my fingers are on the fretboard, I'm able to play it like 70%. If I don't look, it's like 30%. Okay. So he's looking, says he can play it pretty well. If he doesn't look, it's not so good, 30%. So the question is, do I look at least some of the time, or should I try to play it without looking straight? This is a great question, especially for when you're starting out. So I tell, and I know where this is coming from, I often remind people, try not to hunch over, first of all, and stare at your fingers all the time. Bad for your posture. It's going to catch up to you. It did catch up to me. And I've spent years doing exercises and yoga to keep my back. And it's pretty good now, but it's taking constant work. And I'm pretty sure it came from playing sometimes for 8-10 hours a day in certain situations where I was playing all day. And I get tired and just start leaning over and looking at my hands. That was a big mistake, especially sitting in a chair. I would do a little differently now, at least get up and take breaks every 25-30 minutes. But you have to look when you're first starting out. There's no way to play without looking. So you compromise. You look and you try to pull away and see how much you can do without looking, and then you go back and look. And it's this, you're kind of testing where your limits are. I'm going to say this. When I practice, I can often play better without looking, because what's happening when I look at my fingers, it goes through a little longer process of me saying, oh, do that. And that little extra gap, the intellectual process, makes me fumble, especially when I'm playing fast. But in the beginning, that's not such an issue. It's more important to get it accurate. But keep pulling yourself away from using your eyes and try to get to where you rely on your ears. So what you want to do is you try not looking, try to hear if it's the right note or not. So watch this. I'm going to play this harmony note. I'm not looking. So I know that's not what I'm after by sound. I don't have to look. No. There it is. I can hear that. And that comes from years of practicing, just listening to the notes. It's not an overnight thing. You get it little by little. So you look, you get the notes right, then you try to play it without looking. You go through the exercise, keep pushing. Don't spend a bunch of time on it at any one time. You'll get bored or frustrated. Just keep coming back at it little by little and push to where you can play without looking. You want to get to where you can play most of the time like this with your guitar, and it's hard to see, but your posture is good and your technique will be better. Now, I have to look every now and then too, especially, as I come to something I'm not used to playing all the time. But only, 10% of the time instead of 50, 60% of the time like I used to do. And again, it just comes from pulling away little by little. Good question. Let's go over here and let me see if I can grab another question. So I'm just looking up and down for the word question. Okay, so Shulamit is asking, how do you integrate this into a song? So just to be clear, that's a little bit asking, how do you use chili pepper in soup? Well, it depends. It depends on the type of soup and what you want to do with it, basically. A lot of times, the way I learned this kind of thing is I would copy other songs that were using things like this, like Peace Train. And I would get used to using it, and that would give me kind of a framework in my head. It's not an intellectual thing. It's a framework. I know this little lick. And I know I can use something like that as a lick before I start a song. The other use, which I mentioned, is in improvising. You can play. I'm interspersing single notes with some harmonized notes. That was a very simple little ditty just to give you an idea how I integrate the two. Other than that, you can try them more. What you want to do is not think I should use this harmonized note in this type of song. What you want to get to where is you playing something, you hear, hey, I hear a possibility of this. Let me try it out. And you get that from both experimenting and from listening to other people's music and seeing what they do. It's not a, here's the formula or here's the place you use it. That's my 2 cents. And in general, I found when I first started out, I was a little, the intellectual part of me tended to get in the way. I went to college. I'm a fair student in college. I know how to play that game, so to speak. But when it came to actually playing fluidly, all the theory and technical stuff didn't make for fluid playing. It certainly helps me now, but I had to kind of let that go a little bit and learn to listen and decide what I like and kind of train my fingers to go where I'm hearing. And then kind of use the intellectual part to kind of guide me a little here and there, but nudge me, not as the leading way of going. Hope that helps. Questions. Okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Starting soon, I'm looking for questions. I'm a beginner. This doesn't say question, but I think it's a question. I'm a beginner, and give me suggestions so I can do how I can do chord progression smoothly and perfectly. Okay. I think what Musical Lie is asking is, how do I smoothly transition from one chord to another? And musical progressions are just one chord to another and maybe to another and to another. The biggest tip I can give you there is break down the movement of chords. A lot of people, students, get in trouble by trying to play, a chord with a song with 5 chords, and they're struggling changing from one chord to another. Well, first of all, make sure you know the chords. You can at least play the chord like that, or quickly. I see people going like strumming for the chord, and then they're trying to change to the next chord. Well, they haven't a chance because they still can't get to the one chord that they're playing in time. So how can you possibly get to the next chord in time when you're still struggling just to finger the chord? So make a practice of just fingering the chords. Do it a little at a time. Then practice going from this chord to the next chord. 1, rest. 2, rest. 1. Do it in time. Use a metronome at least some of the times to keep you honest and see how fast you can speed up the metronome to change the time. Then when you can do that, keep adding chords. You can play a whole progression. When you get to that place, I would recommend practicing what I call common chord progressions. These are short 3, a lot of them are 4 chord progressions that are just commonly used in lots of popular music. And you'll get more bang for the buck by practicing changing those progressions because you're going to use them a lot more often. And even if it's a song doesn't have the exact progression, if it's in the key of that progression, you're very likely to use those chord movements. Here's an example of one. This is in the key of G. So the G is a 1 chord. 5 is the D chord. G, A, B, C, D. G, A, B, C, D. That's how I got to the 5. Simple. And then let's say the 1, 5, 6. That would be E minor. And again, I just counted G, A, B, C, D, E, 6. No, I want the 4 chord. G, A, B, C. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll play the 4 chord like that. So listen. Very common progression. A lot of people say this is like a pop hit formula because a lot of pop songs have been created with this. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Many, many, many more. Not right now songs as well as 10, 20 years ago. And that's just one example of a common chord progression. Learn what they are and practice them. Take one so you can get smoothly from one to the other. If you can't finger the chord, work on that separately and then add it to the progression, then learn another one, and then apply it to songs that use those progressions. Little by little, you're going to be able to, first of all, change smoothly within the progression. Then when you apply it to a song, you get a much better chance. You have to adjust a little bit. The whole song won't be all the same. This is a plan that has worked for many, many, many students, But it still works for me to this day. When I go to learn a song, I look for the progression. I look for the common chords, the common patterns in the song. And then I just try to figure out what's a little different and work on that. It's much faster than taking one bar at a time and going through the whole song. Okay, feel free to, if I didn't add that, if there's more to that question, feel free to add some more. I'll look for the next question. Okay, so I struggle with, this is Heather, I struggle with not hitting those strings that are closed without looking. How do you avoid this? Well, they're not closed. I'm going to say not closed means, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I'm not fingering it. The notes that I'm not fingering it. And I think, first of all, it's just what I just told you. You do need to look sometimes and then keep pulling yourself away. And it's a process. There's not like one key that'll just solve that problem. And little by little, you want to look and adjust your fingers. You're developing habits. So when I go to play a chord, I have the habit of putting my fingers at just the right angle and in the right place by playing it many, many times over. I don't have to look. I know it's going to go right there. If it was a new chord, I wouldn't have that habit. I'm going to make up a chord. Well, I keep going to chords I already know. I don't know if I can make up a chord. That is a chord. I think it's a diminished chord. I don't normally play that. So if I was going to play that, my fingers, well, they did go there. I think I have played that chord and I just don't remember. But if I were playing a chord that I didn't know well, I'd have to look for a while and then practice doing it without looking. It's already getting more smooth, I can tell. My fingers are just starting to go into like a little knot. And because I've been playing for a while, it happens faster. But when you're starting out, you just go as fast as you can. I think I'm going to stop there. And you can ask more, add to the question if I left something out. Hello, I'm 3 months in learning how to make my own rhythm. How can I make my own rhythm for a song I'm writing? Okay, good question. My favorite thing to do is to write music, and I write instrumental music. So don't ask me questions about lyrics. That's just not my specialty. But one of the biggest tips I can give people who want to write their own music is to learn other people's music and learn common chord patterns. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. And the more you learn what other people are doing, you'll have a foundation to build on and to know if it's in the vein of something that people are used to hearing. If you play something that's totally different than anything anybody's heard, the chances of people accepting it are not very high. Humans are not designed to, on the most part, to accept something that's all new or even 90% new. We look for something that we can latch onto, that we recognize a pattern or something familiar, but 10% different. So it's interesting. That makes it more interesting. If it sounds just like something else, you just say, you just copy it. That's nothing. I'll rather listen to the original. But 10, 20% different, maybe same chord progression, but different rhythm, and of course a different melody, and then your own unique words. Learn what other people are doing. Now, there is a place to pull away from that. If you just play, like when I was growing up, I played top 40. After I was just like a jukebox. I didn't want to be there. And you have to know when to pull away gradually and start making up your own things. But you need a foundation to build off of. Secondly, when you're learning rhythm patterns, the same thing applies. When you learn songs, you're going to learn rhythm patterns. Then you use those rhythm patterns for your own song. I would suggest starting with very simple patterns, not just trying to collect a whole library of complex, a variety of patterns. Get a few basics, 3 patterns. And I would start on guitar with this basic down, down, up, down, up, down, up. You can play so many songs with that basic strum, but here's the key. Don't just play it this way, down, down, up. That's the kind of the intellectual approach. It's just down, down, up, down, up, down, up. Musically, it breathes a little bit, that basic pattern. And if you were to look at it technically, listen to this. Here's a breathing rhythm. I'm doing down, down, up, down, up, down, up. It doesn't sound the same, does it? It doesn't sound. sound the same because I'm working it with hitting a little harder and softer. I'm hitting the lower strings and the high strings, and I'm creating a motion. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little emphasis on 2 and 4. So my recommendation, start with a simple pattern, maybe a variation or two of that, and write songs using that. Learn songs that you can use that pattern with, then expand, add another pattern, try to learn some songs with that, try and apply it to your own songs, and keep growing it little by little. It's fun. It's fun to write your own songs. Okay, Heather, question. How do you train to strike the correct string strum when not strumming from the 6th string down? I often hit the wrong string when the strum starts from a lower string. Yes, you are not alone, Heather. Yes, this is a common thing. So she's saying when you hit the 6th string, you got a lot of room up here. You come down, you hit the 6th string. It's the 1st string you're going to strike. You know, we'll call it 6th string, not the 1st. Okay. But what about the 5th string? You don't have so much room, right? You can't come down this way and you're going to cross over the 6th string. So I'm going to answer that question directly first, and I'm going to add some advice to it that I think it inspired me to add to this. When you're going for the 5th string, the idea is you're not going straight down. You're coming in a little bit of an angle like this. So it's subtle. It's not like this for sure. It's not even a 45. I'd say I'm coming in an angle, so I just miss the 6th string. And even then, occasionally I'm probably going to hit the 6th string. But of course, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So in general, look for this technique where you're kind of angling down. It's not going to be natural at first. Practice a progression that uses the 5th string and go into another chord and then come back so that you have to alternate between the 5th string and the 6th string. Or you could even just use one chord and just alternate. Because that'll get boring. You want to spice it up after a while with something different. Now, that reminds me, this might be a little misleading. I was showing way up here and I was exaggerating so you can see the angle. Really, I'm staying close to the string. If I go way up here, it's too much time to get back here and too much can go wrong between here and here. I'm staying right here. Now, I have seen a significant amount of people who will put some finger or something right on the guitar and kind of anchor their hand so they can hit the right string. And I think that's perfectly fine. That's not a habit I have. By the way, you can practice that by muting the strings with your palm. This is a good exercise. It's a good exercise for muting, but also it helps you practice getting the right notes and keeping your hand close by. Now, with that said, I have noticed students kind of often take things very literally. Well, I said students, including myself. I hear this is the way it should be. Somebody gives me some advice and I try to do it exactly like that. And if I'm slightly off, this is one of the things with hitting a 6th string. I will say the bass note for the C is the C note. Even if I'm not hitting that 5th string, I'm telling students strum from the 5th string down to the 1st. But that doesn't mean that you can't hit the 6th string, really. Aim for the 5th string. If you hit the 6th string, it's no big thing. In fact, with the C chord, the 6th string, if you hit it open, it's actually a part of the chord. It's just not your best bass note, but the difference is very small. It's not worth stressing too much about. No, it'll get better over time. What I'm saying is don't get stuck on just trying to hit that 5th string and I didn't do it and getting frustrated and going back and stopping. Know that you want to finesse it and treat it lightly. That said, I have another technique that I want to show you. When I'm hitting the C chord, for example, this is just an example, my finger in the left hand is touching the 6th string. So if I do accidentally hit it, it's not going to sound. Listen. I'm hitting all the strings right now, but you can't hear this one because I'm muting it slightly. That's a technique you can try out at particular times and see how it fits in that chord. And again, treat it lightly. This is not where you want to spend a lot of time and energy. What's more important, by the way, is spending time and energy getting to the right chord, the fingering to the right chord on time, even if you have to go very slow and getting it accurately. I've seen more students try to go too fast and get these things right, but they slow down and speed up, and that causes more problems than if you're hitting the wrong bass note occasionally. Let's see what else we got for next question. And if I answer a question, but I didn't quite answer it fully, or I got it wrong, please let me know. I'd be glad to come back at it. I'm hoping I'm adding useful information for everybody, but I do also want to answer your specific question. It says, let me first say you've got a great name. This is by Tomas Kaus. Yes. Good name, Tomas. I miss this one because there's I didn't see it at first. 3 essential Spanish chord video got me hooked on roomba flamenco. Your chords are tough. How about the strumming pattern? Can you show me? Yes. He's asking about, to summarize, how do you play a roomba flamenco strum pattern? If you have any of my CDs, any of my 6 CDs, I use this strum pattern a lot. Oh, and I happen to be out of tune on this guitar. So I'm going to play it so everybody who doesn't know what we're talking about. And I first heard this strum pattern by Gypsy Kings, a band out of southern France, actually, but most people think about it as Spanish. Okay, that sounds good enough. So here's the basic strum pattern. And so here's the basic pattern. To do this roomba rhythm, I'm using my fingers on my right hand. Doesn't matter what you do here. And I'm striking with my hand and my thumb. On the fingers, I'm starting out with the outside of the nail. I'm striking down. So I've got my hand slightly closed, and I'm also doing a slight twisting motion. So it's down. Let me see. By the way, there are many variations on this strum pattern. This is not the right one. This is one I start students off with, and I show some variations. And even when I'm playing a song, I don't stick to the exact strum pattern. I'll add some variety to it. So that said, the basic pattern, down, down, up. So I'm doing the outside of my hand, down, upside of my thumbnail, down with my fingers again, the outside of the nail, and then I come up with the thumb, but I open my hand and mute the string. So that first part's the hardest part. It's down, down, and then up, and I twist my hand as the thumb goes up and mute the strings. That's what it sounds like faster. Down, 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 up. So, and the rest of the strum is down, up, down, up. And then I brush up with the inside of my fingers, up, down, up. And that's the entire strum. Down, up, down, up. Rest, up, down, up. Down, up, down, up. Rest or gap, up, down, up. So it's all even notes except for that space there. Down, up, down, up. Space, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Space, up. So needless to say, you start slow, just have to think about every motion. And a little at a time, you speed it up, start with a metronome, so you can do it at least this fast. And then you keep picking up little by little. See, it doesn't sound right till you get up to a certain tempo. So don't get too discouraged if this just doesn't sound good to you. Rest. I'll try and remember on the blog post when this is all, in a couple of days, my assistant will put this on the blog. And I'll try and add a link to a lesson that you can watch that's a little more detailed than what I just did, breaking down the motion, the steps little by little, each motion into its own step, and then putting them back together. And it's hard to get it when you watch the whole thing, but when you break it down and put it back together, your hands little by little get the habit of doing it. Okay, roomba strum. Let's see, going on to the next one. Bar chords are tough. Yes, bar chords are tough. This is, she's asking for, oh, I'm sorry. This is Jim, not she, he. Jim is asking for a cheat for the B minor chord. So two things. I really strongly recommend you learn how to do bar chords. And the main thing with bar chords is don't just jump into the B minor chord. Start learning it little by little. Learn to get the bar, learn the basics of doing like, I like to teach students to do these power chords because they're the basic fingering for a bar chord, except without the bar. And then you put the two together. So go step by step, learn the bars. You're going to need them. But there is a good cheat for a B minor. And it looks like this. No bar. So I've got my first finger on the second fret of the first string, the high E string. The second finger next to it on the second string, third fret. My third and pinky together on the fourth and third strings, fourth fret. So this is the same fingering as a B minor bar, only I would make a bar across that. And in this case, I just do the first finger on the first fret. Watch out for, often this first string gets deaded out if your hand is not up and down angled enough. If you pull it back a little bit, see, it deadens out first string. So that's one thing to watch out for. And you can practice, a very useful thing to practice is going from here to the G, because it's a common pattern. A lot of times the B minor goes to a G, and the other one it often goes to is a D. Just a suggestion. As a matter of fact, in the practice plan coming up for June, I've got an exercise where I'm practicing the G to the B minor, to the C, to the D, because that's a common chord pattern. It's a pattern called 1, 3, 4, 5, and you recognize it. Okay, you see a common theme there? Break it down small pieces, practice it, build it back together, and keep at it. This applies to everything. I set out to learn Spanish, and I really underestimated what it would take to actually learn to speak, with other people. But it came down to the same thing years later. I realized all of this is take little bits at a time, especially things I can use, keep adding to it, keep going over and over. I got some theory along the way. And, unlike I did with the music where I really focused on theory, I just used the grammar, I call theory, in little bits and ways that to help me kind of remember certain things. And it worked. It worked. A lot of practicing and putting myself in situations where I felt uncomfortable. But, fortunately, I met a lot of great people and people very patient with me. Next, concerning learning all the notes on the fretboard, how fast should I aim for? Fast is not so much a consideration when learning the frets on the notes on the fretboard. I wouldn't focus on fast. I would focus on how easily you can get to another note. So I have a system in my practice, the Real Guitar Success membership, a step-by-step how to memorize the notes on the fretboard. And Shulamit, who's asking the question, has done that system. The idea is to just get it to where it's easier and easier, and don't worry about going fast. There are other places to go fast. Learn to do scales quickly and accurately at the same time. Don't sacrifice just going fast for accuracy. But with learning the notes on the fretboard, it's more of an issue of getting it where it gets easier. It feels like you hear this note and you want to get to the next one, and it gets easier to get to the next note. and then you'll use it within your playing. Okay, Heather, thank you. That helps a ton. Great. Can you, this is Quest Contracting and Construction. Hi, Thomas. Good afternoon. Can you give me the chords for Journey Through the Land, this land? No, I don't know that, but I'm not going to teach songs on a live. I would rather give people a fish than, or rather teach people a fish than just give people a fish. And I don't think it's really fair to everybody on the call to start teaching a song that maybe only one person's interested in. Let's see. Looking for questions. Jesse James, what a name. How many chords should I use in writing my own song? I have one rhythm holding the A minor, I think that means. Usually, by the way, Jesse, we use a small M to mean minor, if that's what you're trying to say. And if you just say A chord, you don't need the M. We assume it's major unless you put a little M for minor. And lifting off the third string while strumming. I don't really understand that question, Jesse. It's one of those things I'd have to see you playing. He says, and I should use the writing my own song. I have one rhythm holding the A minor and lifting off the third string. Yeah, I can't really picture that in my mind. I'm sorry. But if you want to try and ask another way, how many chords should I use in writing my own song? I can say there's no one thing, though I would opt for 3 and 4 chords to start with. And if you're a very experienced songwriter, it's kind of like words. Using lots of words doesn't make it better. And using lots of chords doesn't necessarily make it better, especially if you don't know how to use them. Go for less chords, sound good, and then learn how to use more chords, only if it makes it sound better. My idea of a song is something that I edit down to where I've gotten the point across and no more. Said this, make it as simple as it needs to be, but no simpler. Einstein, that was Einstein. As simple as it needs to be, but no simpler. Same thing with songs. That's usually 3 to 4 chords to start with. A lot of the common popular songs are written with 4 chords. A lot of popular folk songs are written with 3 chords, and some with 2 chords, children's and folk songs. Daisy, I'm taking your course and enjoy it very much. I would like to learn to play Wildwood Flower, Carter style. Would you teach us how to play this? Okay, Daisy, I will actually add that to possible lessons for the Real Guitar Success membership site. And I appreciate any suggestions like that, either here in the live, or you can always send me in the forum too, suggestions. I love it. I love to know what my students are wanting to learn, and if you're struggling with anything as well, so I can kind of tailor my lessons to help the struggles and the interest of my students directly. I would never do that in a live session. Again, I wouldn't want everybody watching me teaching a song that maybe only a few people want to learn. But certainly on the website, I can make a song for Wildwood Flower. And I do have many other lessons to make, so I'll put it into the queue. I'm not sure how many right now, but it won't be immediate. But it sounds like a great idea, actually. I'm kind of nudge that to the top if it makes sense. Thomas, again, thank you, Thomas. Hope to watch this again. Yes. And that's the nice thing about this. I am going to record it, and it's going to be on the website. So if you either couldn't stay for the whole thing, or you just wanted to see me, what I was doing, and see it again, I personally sometimes need to see things 2 or 3 times. So I don't think I'm alone in that. You can go back and watch the video. Give me a couple days to get it up, because I'm going to write the show notes, all the questions with a timestamp, so you can go right to the questions that you want to see. Question, Heather asked another question. I do not have a capo yet. Is it necessary at the beginning stage? That's a great question. I never thought of it that way, but I would say it's not necessary, but it's very useful, and there's no reason not to get one. I would say don't buy a super expensive one, but this one I really like, by the way, and this is a newer one. Ernie Ball makes this, and it really works well. I don't know another name. It's just, I think it's the only capo Ernie Ball makes. Ernie Ball, Ball. And Diodario, most of my capos are by Diodario. I like their, I think they're good for what you pay. They're a good capo. Traditionally, Shub and Kaiser have made, are the most popular capos. And the Diodarios are kind of patterned after the traditional, both Shub and Kaiser. Anyway, get the capo. Then when it comes up, I have lessons that you're going to get to. It's just there. You don't have to go, oh, stop my lesson, wait a week till I can get out and go get a capo. Takes me a while to go out anyway. Get a capo. They're cheap. I prefer to spend like $20 on a capo, 25. But you can get a decent capo that will probably serve you just fine for $10, $12. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, Heather. And so she didn't ask how to use a capo. I have lessons on my website, how to change keys using a capo. It's very practical when you're first starting out. If you learn a song, but it's in a key that's not easy for your voice, you can put a capo on it and play the same chords, but sing it more easily. And there are other uses for capo, but that's for a beginner. That's the first place to use a capo. Okay. Is there a trick for A minor bar chord, 5th fret? Been trying for a week each day. And this is Thomas. Oh, and that's what I went right to. That chord that I played for the, Thomas is the one who asked about the roomba flamenco, and I played a minor bar. A couple of tricks. If this is hard for you, don't treat it like one chord. Treat it like bar chords need more work in general, and work on bar chords. This is actually one of the easier bar chords, by the way. It's much easier than the F chord, which most people start off with, that or the B minor, because the F chord is way down here and there's more tension here. It's harder to press and get sound good. The A minor being up here, it's less tension. Treat it as I need more work on bar chords, and go about systematically working on your bar chords. Add this to your practice routine and come back at it regularly. Don't just try to play a song and come to the chord and try it for 10, 15 minutes. I can't do it. And then come back at it again a week later. I'm exaggerating a little, but I've seen students do something like that over and over and then complain, oh, it must be me. I'm not good at that. That's not how it works. You break it down and work on a little every day, maybe twice a day for 5 minutes. Just a bar, do a bar exercise. Get used to going up, down. Work on that for 3-4 minutes, twice a day, until you can press all and get all the strings to sound and take it off. I have a specific exercise that just goes up and down. It's not super special. The idea is to just get practice in some kind of systematic way of barring the chords. And then little by little, when you go to make an A minor chord, all that practicing will support you. And you won't be dealing with a whole bunch of other things like all the other fingering and where it fits in the song and the rhythm and all those other things at the same time. You need to isolate the things that you're working on. This applies to lots of things, and it definitely applies to bar chords. This is where I see it come up often. People jump into playing a complicated bar chord when they need it, and then they feel like there's something wrong with them. Their fingers aren't right. Jesse James, should I get good at my chords first or learn to read music notes first? My guitar teacher said I should learn to read notes because most guitar players can't read, and that would have a one-up. Oh, I hate to. Now he's put me in an awkward position. I don't want to diss another guitar teacher. So I'll just say my opinion, not talking about anybody else. I think reading notes on the guitar is mostly a waste of time, quite frankly, because that's not how we play guitar. Now, that said, I can read because I went to college and I studied classical guitar. Oh, by the way, that's unless you're playing classical guitar. If you're playing classical guitar, you got to read notes, no way out. And I'm talking classical, not just finger picking style, but actually classical meaning, classical technique, and a systematic classical approach. You got to read notes, no way out from the beginning. Get go. Don't get too far along if you can't read notes. Start with reading notes and along the same way, because you're going to have to read notes. That's the way classical guitar is notated, taught. But for pop, rock, folk, country, we don't use notes. For the most part, we use chord progressions and little tablature. I read notes, and I like my students to read notes. So I don't mean it as a total waste of time. I just mean it's not the place to spend your time and energy in the beginning. Learn chords, strums, and some music theory that will support that. At least, get used to training your ear to hear the basic intervals. And then later on, as you can play some stuff, start adding some note reading. But why spend a bunch of time in the beginning learning something that you're not going to use very much later? There's no competition. It doesn't matter if other guitar players can do it. It's not a competition. It's for yourself. But here's the biggest key. A lot of people who start out guitar quit. And a lot of times, because what they're doing, they don't see it going anywhere. And if you're reading notes and it's not going anywhere, you probably never get to where you can actually play guitar. You're much less likely to get to some place where you can actually do something. My 2 cents, I would start with chords. Learn to read tablature. That's a good one. Learn to read basic tablature. It's not hard, and you can use it a lot in the beginning. And then systematically build your chords, especially getting from one chord to another in time. That's where a lot of the students I see fall down. They learn a bunch of chords, but they can't change smoothly. Go for less chords, simple rhythm, and get the smooth changing from one to the other, and then add to that. Don't jump with a bunch of chords and then try to figure out how to change from them smoothly. Hope that helps. Feel free to add to that. Oh, wow, we're getting lots of questions. Question. Okay, Jim, it says, hey, Quest, see above message to you. Oh, I think he's talking directly to Quest. Got it. Why do some musicians play the chords on the 9th fret or the 12th fret, something like this? Well, I don't know what you mean, something like this, but I'll just take it. Why do some musicians play chords on the 9th fret or the 12th fret? For variety. You could easily, especially as a beginner, I would say don't worry about that. It's just not an issue. But out of curiosity, I might play a C chord here, I might play here, or I might play here. For varieties, it's a little different tone. A C chord. Notice the notes are ringing down here because I got some open notes. So I want a rhythm, or I want to deaden the notes, and I want a little higher pitch like that. So I'll play it up higher in the fretboard. Eventually, it is good to learn to play the chords in a variety of different places. It's not the place to start. Get half a dozen chords and be able to change smoothly before you start worrying about that. And learn to play in the common keys. So with guitar, that's C, G. I'm counting in fives, by the way, that's how I can remember it. C, count of 5 to G, G, A, B, C, D, key of D, D, E, F, G, A, key of A, and then D, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Got a little lost there. Okay, those 5 keys. So that's G, C, G, D, A, and E. Learn some basic patterns in those keys because that's what you're going to use a lot. Then worry about going up higher in the fretboard. If you want to play in a band with other people, especially another guitar player, that technique will come in handy because sometimes one guitar player will play the lower chord and one will play the higher chord, and the two together kind of fill out a little bit more. So next question. How do you strum your guitar? Oh, I missed one. In bar chords, I have an issue with one finger, A major. Any ideas? Mark, maybe you could help me with that question. I don't really understand. I understand you have a problem with bar chords, but I understand what one finger A major means. I'd say in general, it's better to treat bar chords as one issue, learning to play bar chords, than just one bar chord having a problem. So practice bar chords kind of little by little over time, preferably every day, or at least 5-6 days a week, until you can get to play bar chords, not focusing on one particular issue with one bar chord. But if you want to add to one finger A major, I'd be glad to try and help with your specific question. Next question by Jesse Jane. I'm learning to play old style country. Yeah, cool. You're going to use a lot of this strum, by the way. I would bass strum. And it's a 4/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 beats, and the 3 version. This is the ballad version of that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. By the way, country players don't usually use that form of C, except for very modern country. We use this more, I call folk style version of C. Everybody recognizes, that basic pattern. Jim, I like your channel. I'm learning the song Orally and I can play the melody. Good, cool. By the way, I teach sometimes some melodies in a variety of ways. The main reason I do that is because I'm trying to give students a way to practice fingering the notes and getting them right without a bunch of other stuff added. And when you're playing a melody, it kind of simplifies. You just have to hit that one note. So I want them to get it close to the fret, the angle just right, and that kind of thing. When you play chords, you got 3 fingers to think about, or 4 sometimes, and it just adds to the complexity and makes it hard to get every single finger in the right place. So it's helpful to play some single melodies as you're learning to work on getting the finger right, and it's fun. If melodies sound good, we're trained to like melodies. It's in our nature. I noticed the C chord appears on different lines of the staff, so don't know how to play it. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Mostly, if you're reading the single line melody, you're not going to play a chord. If you play a chord, it's going to be a C chord note, and you just have to memorize the chord form. Usually, at least my students don't read the notes to play a C chord. They just say C, and they know the chord form. They know the fingering, and there's different chord forms. I like this one, and I like this one, but I can play a C all up and down the neck. Hey, Thomas, I enjoy warm-up practice. I saw a video on spider pattern. What's your favorite warm-up pattern? Tim, you're part of my membership. Go into the Real Guitar U portion and go from there into practice library. And then you'll see warm-up exercises. And there's a bunch there. I say try them all out and see which ones speak to you. Find one that you like for whatever reason. Maybe it just fits your level, or it's working on something you want to work on, and you just like the sound of it. And then do that for a while and then move on to another one. I'm thinking a week, 2. You don't have to spend months on one warm-up exercise, but you can always come back to it. Know that. Warm-up exercises never go away. You don't get it and then you throw it away and go on to the next one. I still do a warm-up exercise every day, actually. Still do that. Learn that dozens, 20 years ago. I still do that exercise. Of course, I work at getting it faster and smoother, and I'll slow it down to get it right and then pick it up. And just lately, I actually made some improvements in my speed. That's not a beginner warm-up. I would do this in the beginning stages. Start with, and then next frame. This is the basic warm-up I teach in the beginner's journey. And then get to a second version of that where you add the pinky. And I move it up to here because this is a big stretch for beginner students. So I move it up here and add the pinky. Then over time, you can back it up as you get used to stretching. So you get to this. And of course, ultimately, if you want, you can get to where you go all the way up the neck like this too. And so on. Try in the Real Guitar U, the practice library, because that way it'll add some interest and fun to it as well as you learn. And you'll come across an exercise. God, that's me. I need that exercise. How did I ever live without that? Okay. Cool, sir. Jim. Thank you, Jim. Quest Contracting. Oh, you're Jim. Nice to meet you, Jim. Hey, Thomas, do you have any tips for a complete starter here? Yes. Um, get some lessons. uh, Easier said than done, I know. I try not to be flippant, but I think I didn't realize the value of having a good teacher in the beginning. And online is great right now. I do so much online. Um, YouTube videos are fine, but they don't go in order, and people have different opinions, and it's confusing for a beginner. I think they're more useful if somebody's been playing for a while that knows, yeah, this is what I need right now. But when in the beginning, you don't know what order should be, and when you see different ways of doing something, it's just frustrating, confusing. Get something methodical, and when you get a teacher, go on my blog and find the blog post that says how to hire a guitar teacher, how to find a good instructor. I wrote this years ago, but it's a great blog post with a checklist and things to look for. Wish I'd known all that when I had some bad teachers in the beginning, and I tried to help students to avoid that. My second piece of advice, and this is going to come second, is practice a little every day. Don't go 3 and 4 days without practicing. And better to practice 10 minutes a day than an hour one day and let 3 or 4 days go by in the beginning. Just keep coming back at it, little at a time. Know that it's going to take time. Just keep chipping away at it. Think of that story, The Tortoise and the Hare, where the rabbit, I don't use the word here, just out of the gate runs, leaves them in the dust, but then, slacks off and ends up losing the race. This is a perfect example of the tortoise wins every time. I've seen it over and over and over. Just keep chipping away at it. I love my guitar playing. It keeps me spend time with myself. Yes, but I work 2 jobs and have 70-hour work week. Yes, I understand. How can I schedule my guitar time to keep learning? Well, Ryle, yes, you are not alone. And as a matter of fact, I'm sometimes in that position myself. What I do, first of all, for students, I recommend just make 10 minutes and try to do it at the same time every day if you can. It's not mandatory, but shoot for that because it gets easier. It's easier to make those 10 minutes when you make it a habit. And when you feel like practicing more, try to go with it. I often find if I set out to do 10 minutes, it turns into 20, 30, 40. I set myself a minimum of 25 minutes. I've been playing longer, and 10 minutes I wouldn't get very far. But 25 minutes is not very much for a professional guitar player. And I'll often practice more, especially if I come up with a lick that it seems like it could be turned into a song. I love creating music, composing music. But just keep coming back a little at a time, and then try to look for times, just be open to when you feel a little more inspired, and you can come back and practice a lesson a little bit more. But keep coming back to your 10 minutes and use that model of a 10 minutes, even when you get time, say, I can practice a half an hour a day now. Well, keep that 10 minutes as your minimum practice time. Say, I'm going to practice for a minimum 10 minutes. I'd like to practice a half an hour, but if I do my 10 minutes, I'm going to feel good about it. I kept my commitment. And that's a habit that you want to make, feeling like you've kept your commitment, because that's how people get discouraged. They say, I'm going to practice for an hour. They practice for 20 minutes. After a month, they say, I keep letting myself down, and they feel bad about it. And every time they think of guitar, they think, I feel bad. Well, don't go there. Go for a minimum viable time. 10 minutes is good. And make time to do it, and just do what you have to do to make 10 minutes. You have to admit, everybody can make 10 minutes. You just have to get real with yourself and say, I'm going to do this, or be open to, if you really won't make 10 minutes, maybe this is not the right thing for you right now. I mean, playing guitar is not maybe where you want to put your time right now. Fair enough. I don't want to learn to be a good snow skier right now, So I'd rather play guitar. Maybe some other people rather do something else with their time. That's fair. Hope that helps, Ryle. Jesse James, how do a lot of the bands listen? I better read this question. I can't quite get the word. How do a lot of bands I listen to, like Hank Williams, Hank Jr., and Bob Wayne, I don't know Bob Wayne, how do you think they come up with a rhythm and style of song? They played lots of other people's music for years, and they're using the same rhythms over and over. They don't just make up rhythms. I haven't talked to Waylon, but that's all the professional musicians I know. They're drawing from a library of things they've done over and over. And when they compose their own song, they're just drawing from that library of experience. Hope that helps. Okay. Now I got a question from Soymaya. Did I say that right? Soymaya, Sowmya, Soymaya. How to keep up with tempo without using a metronome? That's a good question, actually. First of all, when you use a metronome, it helps you internalize a beat, and then you're easier to keep up with a tempo because little by little you kind of memorize what a steady tempo should sound like. So use a metronome to practice. Not all the time, though, because you don't want to get to where you have to have the metronome or you can't play in rhythm. So you go back and forth. Then you try it without a metronome and see if you're speeding up or slowing down. If you can, try playing with somebody else once in a while, because it kind of gives you a reality check. If you're going off rhythm, you kind of have to stop and figure out who got off rhythm here. And you just keep at that little by little. Metronome, no metronome, metronome, no metronome. One of the things that I find people get in trouble with rhythm a lot is they're trying to do something they can't really quite do, but they blame it on the rhythm. What's happening is they can't get from one chord to another. They don't know the chords well enough. Sometimes you need to back up and get the things you're working on first before you try to do it in rhythm. I love the sound of my nylon string better. Yeah, I actually play the nylon string guitar more than anything because that's what I use for my CDs. But I love a good steel string guitar too. I seem to play the lead better. That's Ross. Mia, how to arrange finger style. So that's a 6-month program. And I happen to have made a lesson on that. Go on my blog and look for, just type in how to arrange finger style. And in a couple of days, I'll try and put a link to that on the blog post for this recording. So I give you some good tips on how to arrange a song to finger style. I use Happy Birthday as an example, and I start to show you the melody, the chords, and how you start combining them together. But to be good at it just takes lots of experience. Keep doing it over and over and over. Okay, so we're getting to the end of the questions for today. I'm going to close up soon. Is there any last minute questions that I could answer? And if I missed your question, maybe you could just add it again at the end there so I'll see it. If it doesn't have question, I can't really see that well if I missed anything, quite frankly. So I'll just look at the end. If I missed your question, maybe you could just add it again at the end. I'll give just a minute or two while I do the drawing for this week. So here we go. This is a drawing of the people that have completed the monthly practice plan on my Real Guitar Success membership site. And they're going to get a $50 gift card from Amazon. Let's see who we got here. Jaime, Jaume. Congratulations. You've won the Amazon gift card, and even more, you've won another month of doing practice sessions and getting better at guitar. Good job. And good job to all of you who finished the monthly practice session. Let me see. Any last minute questions before we close up for today? One finger, a major chord, ring finger. Okay. I'm sorry, Mark. I can't even tell if that's a question or not. Thanks, Tomas. That was fun. You're welcome, Tim. My pleasure. And Mark says, goodbye. Tap your foot, hear the tune. Oh, he's given some advice. Okay, tap your foot, hear the tune. To keep in rhythm, he's saying yes. And I do generally tap my foot when I'm trying to keep a rhythm. That's a good point. I missed that. I usually tap my foot. I used to do what? I used to do this. And I had a guitar player who said, no, don't do that. Looks like you don't like the song. I said, do this. So yeah, it sounds silly, but I said, yeah, I think he's right. I'll do this. But I usually use my foot. Merci. You're welcome, Jim. And you're welcome, Soymaya. Okay, we're going to close up for today. Thank you, all of you, for being with me today. It's been a pleasure. And I hope you've enjoyed this. I've had a great time. I will be here next month, the first Tuesday of every month, 12 noon California time. I don't know what that is in the time zone that you're at, But I look forward to seeing you again. And you can submit questions ahead of time. And that way I can even sometimes do a little research if it's something I need to do research on. Bye for now. It's been a pleasure. You're welcome, Shulamit. Nice to see you. And Ross, I write lyrics. Yes, that is a great skill to have. Not my skill, but I really admire it. And Ross says it's normal to play lead better than chords. It depends on the person. Some people just naturally do lead better. It's good to be able to do both. It's hard to play with other people if you can't play chords. Okay, you're very welcome, Heather. Pleasure, all of you. Bye for now.